you can listen to The Front on your smart speaker every morning. To hear the latest episode, just say, play the news from The Australian.
From The Australian, here's What's on the Front. I'm Kristen Amiot. It's Monday, June 17. Invest in big ideas, not welfare. That's the call from opposition finance spokeswoman Jane Hume. In a speech at the Sydney Institute today, she'll lay out coalition policies designed to boost female entrepreneurs and empower more women to steer household finances. China's second-in-charge, Li Cheng, arrived in Adelaide over the weekend, declaring the nation's relationship with Australia is back on track. But Foreign Minister Penny Wong has warned Peter Dutton's intention to ditch a 2030 climate target if he wins the next election could see under-threat Pacific nations cozy up to Beijing. You can read Ben Packham's analysis of the Chinese Premier's visit so far at theaustralian.com.au. Bruce Lehrmann is headed back to court today, this time in his hometown of Toowoomba. The former Liberal staffer is charged with 2 counts of rape relating to an alleged incident that occurred in the Queensland city in 2021. He's likely to plead not guilty. That's today's episode. A note before we start. This episode mentions sexual assault. A couple of hours' drive west of Brisbane in Queensland's Darling Downs region, the city of Toowoomba is known for its sprawling gardens, historic Queenslander architecture, and vast valleys just west of the Great Dividing Range. About 140,000 people call Toowoomba home, and it's produced some of Australia's best-known sporting, cultural and academic figures. There's TV presenter Sonia Kruger, the actor Geoffrey Rush, champion 800-metre runner Peter Bol, and rugby league legend Jonathan Thurston, among many others. It's also the hometown of former Liberal staffer Bruce Lehrmann. He'll be back in town today for his first appearance at the Toowoomba Magistrates Court, where he's charged with 2 counts of rape for an incident that's alleged to have occurred in late 2021.
Toowoomba is one of the country's largest regional centres. It's just after Canberra in terms of size.
Mackenzie Scott is a reporter based in the Australian's Queensland Bureau. She'll be in Toowoomba today for the hearing.
And it's really well known for its annual flower festival. That's what a lot of Brisbaneites know it for. So the town itself, it's quite large. It's in a quite conservative population as well. A lot of people go there to retire, but there's definitely 2 different sides of Toowoomba. There's the beautiful, rich retirees from out west and out east, but there's also a lot of lower socioeconomic areas there as well, and a lot of crime associated with that too. And this is where Bruce Lehrmann grew up. This is where he lived with his mother before heading off to Canberra to study.
Lehrmann's homecoming is likely to garner national interest. He's recently notified the Federal Court of Australia of his intention to appeal Justice Michael Lee's finding, on the balance of probabilities, that he raped Brittany Higgins inside Parliament House in the early hours of March 23, 2019. It's important to note that the Toowoomba matter is unrelated to everything that played out in Sydney's federal court in recent months. Lehrmann is likely to plead not guilty, and this charge will be tested in the courts on the evidence. Lehrmann sued Network 10 and TV presenter Lisa Wilkinson for defamation after Higgins's allegation against him was aired in an episode of The Project almost 2 years later, in 2021.
Tonight, claims of rape, roadblocks to a police investigation, and a young woman forced to choose between her career and the pursuit of justice.
Lehrmann's notice of appeal, which the law student prepared himself, states he was denied procedural fairness by Justice Lee, and the ultimate finding that caused him to lose the case was contrary to the evidence presented at trial.
Having escaped the lion's den, Mr. Lehrmann made the mistake of coming back for his hat.
It's a beautiful sandstone historic magistrates court. It was built in the 1800s, so it has definitely seen a fair share of crime and trials.
His appearance at today's hearing marks the first time Lehrmann is facing a judge in this matter. He's on bail and hasn't been required to attend any hearings up to this point. Instead, Lehrmann's been represented by barrister Patrick Wilson and his lawyer, Rowan King, at earlier proceedings and has yet to formally enter a plea.
I spoke to Mr. King earlier today. He confirmed that Mr. Lehrmann would be attending in person, that this has been on the cards for some time, and that he has been inundated with media interest in the past 48 hours about his involvement in the case. He has been representing Mr. Lehrmann from the beginning and was also involved in a suppression order applications once the law changes in Queensland came through.
This is a committal hearing, and it's expected to take about half a day. That means the prosecutor will lay out the evidence in their case, and the magistrate will decide if there's enough there for the matter to proceed to trial. The defence also has the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses, and Lehrmann's lawyers previously indicated they intend to question the complainant in this case. At a directions hearing held in February, Wilson said the parties were in agreement about the scope of that cross-examination. According to Queensland Police, the complainant met Bruce Lehrmann at a strip club in October of 2021, 8 months after Brittany Higgins went public with her allegation against him. The 28-year-old woman said he introduced himself as Bryce. She claims they had consensual sex that night, but that he didn't wear a condom when they engaged in intercourse twice the next morning, a move for which she claims she never gave her consent. If her allegation's proven, that's considered sexual assault under Queensland law. The contents of the complainant's phone were handed to Wilson and King in November. At that time, King said it would take weeks to review the 500 files and requested a 6-week adjournment to get across the material. A voice actor is reading the words spoken by Rowan King in court.
Effectively, there are some clerical matters with respect to the data that has been provided. The disclosure consists of between 400 to 500 files which are locked, which means I can't do what I usually do with this type of disclosure, such as combine the documents and perform a word or phrase search. It's slightly slowing down the process on my end.
Coming up after the break, the long and winding road to the Toowoomba Magistrates Court. Subscribers get first access to The Australian's comprehensive reporting and analysis of the Lehrmann legal saga. Plus, there's breaking news alerts, newsletters and expert commentary too. Check us out at theaustralian.com.au and we'll be back after this break. For almost a year, the defendant in this matter, Bruce Lehrmann, was known only to the public as a high-profile man. In early 2023, on January 11, Queensland Police told the media they charged a 27-year-old man with 2 counts of rape, dating back to October 2021. We now know that man was Lehrmann, who just turned 29. But legislation in place in Queensland when that media release was issued prevented the press from naming people accused of sexual assault until those matters were committed to trial. That law was scrapped by the Queensland government on October 3 of last year. It was a big part of the government's response to a report by the Women's Safety and Justice Task Force, which made 89 recommendations for curbing coercive control in the Sunshine State. Here's Queensland Attorney-General Yvette D'Arth.
Part of the basis of this protection for accused rapists is that women maliciously make up complaints to damage reputations. These rape myths have no place in our society.
Now, people charged with sexual assault in Queensland can be identified before a judge makes a call on committal. Lehrmann's lawyers sought a non-publication order to protect his identity after the new legislation kicked in. The former Liberal staffer had already faced a criminal trial for raping Brittany Higgins. That trial was sensationally aborted in October 2022 due to juror misconduct. And his lawyer said the prospect of being identified publicly following those high-profile proceedings was weighing heavily on him. They argued a non-publication order was necessary to protect their client's mental health. But less than a fortnight later, Magistrate Claire Kelly ruled the NPO wasn't necessary. A barrister acting for a handful of media outlets, including News Corp Australia, which publishes The Australian, successfully argued in court that Bruce Lehrmann had voluntarily placed himself in a public forum. That included a tell-all interview Lehrmann gave to Channel 7's Spotlight program, in which he appeared to promise retribution for reputational damage he believed had been caused by extensive media reporting of the criminal proceedings.
Bruce?
Liam, morning.
You ready?
Let's light some fires.
Lehrmann's lawyers said the magistrate got it wrong, and so back to court it went. Before the month was out, Supreme Court Justice Peter Applegarth said Magistrate Kelly was reasonable. And so, for the first time in almost a year, Bruce Lehrmann's name was back out there, this time in relation to a new and serious allegation of sexual assault.
Finally, the veil of secrecy is shattered. Bruce Lehrmann can be revealed as the man facing 2 counts of rape in Toowoomba.
The complainant in today's proceedings says she came forward to police after searching for Brittany Higgins's allegation against Bruce Lehrmann on Google and identified him as the man with whom she'd had a sexual encounter 3 months earlier. When Lehrmann was finally named as the accused in the Toowoomba matter, Higgins voiced her support for the 28-year-old woman on social media. She wrote on Instagram, "When I first found out about the alleged assault, my heart broke for you. To know that this has allegedly taken place while he was out on bail in 2021 is devastating." Lehrmann issued a fiery rebuke to Higgins via a statement. He said a non-publication order would have prevented Higgins from making the prejudicial post and stopped it from being widely reported in the media. Lehrmann reiterated he'd never been found criminally responsible for rape and said Higgins has a total disregard for how our justice system rightly operates with the presumption of innocence at its core. Mackenzie Scott is a reporter with The Australian. Come back to the front tomorrow to hear how the committal hearing unfolded in the Toowoomba Magistrates Court. And for all the nation's best news, sport and politics, go to theaustralian.com.au.